Like Ryan said, welcome to CCG Optimal Self. This is part of our commitment to growing ourselves every weekend, every Friday. We're going to talk about one of the early books by Brené Brown. This is actually the physical copy I have. The Gifts of Imperfection was published 14 years ago. That's a long time. Now, it's one of her earlier books. This launched her actually in her career. And since I read for ideas, yeah, I read to pick up things that will help me improve my practice. Okay, my practice is working with vulnerable children. So I use vulnerability as the core lesson from this book. Okay, I hope my sharing in the next few slides will also give you some ideas that can help your family and also the child you impact or you serve. According to the author Brené Brown, stories are data with a soul. So all these years of her studies are distilled. She initially wanted to study happiness, but she ended up studying shame. And to make it more meaningful to us, it gave birth to her theory on resilience. Okay, you can actually Google her and find her TED Talks, very popular, online. Okay, so um, why are we vulnerable? Because we are raised to be perfect. Okay. If you're living with babies, you celebrate every small milestone. The first smile, the first step, the first word, which usually is no. And when we live with them and they start going to school, we start celebrating the perfect score or the perfect performance or the certificate or the medal. Okay. Um, when they're growing up, we even raise them to say they want to become a doctor or a lawyer when they grow up. And these patterns are very familiar up to now because we think being perfect is tied up to what you accomplish and how well you do it. I was actually the first grandchild on my mother's side. I was also raised to expect perfection and to strive for it. Okay. Um, if you are a perfectionist, you're driven by this phrase, what will people think? Okay. This actually completes the cycle of perfectionism. We want to please, we want to perform, we want to perfect. Okay. So I'll give a few stories based on my life. So it's easier to share. Okay. I was only 5 years old when I overheard my piano teacher tell my parents I learn fast. And that was enough to motivate me to learn piano with great discipline. I was determined to perfect the drill, the piece, and later on the performance. Eventually, because this was a thing I did until I was 12, um, and about 10, 11 years old, I would practice 4 hours every day. By the time I was 12, I was competitive, so my fingers will hurt. They would sometimes bruise and bleed. All because I was aiming to earn trophies, awards, and win contests. Okay, so we're vulnerable. And maybe you can relate to me. We're vulnerable when we compare ourselves to others. Actually, I was quite a good player. That's why I was drafted to represent my school. But I was still unhappy. Why am I unhappy? Because I would compare my performance to somebody who played better. That's usually the sadness found in comparison. You don't compare yourself with somebody you do better than. You compare yourself with people, in my case for piano, who performed the music better, who read the music sheet faster, and of course the people who won the coveted trophy. Okay. Another vulnerability for trying to be perfect is we end up trying to conform. We want to fit in, to belong to a group. Maybe you're like me, no? You remember high school liking a boy band because your friends liked it, no? For me, and this will tell you how old I am, our boy band was New Kids on the Block. I wonder what yours was, no? Or maybe you watched the same movie over and over again, crying with your friends at the same time, not same scenes. For us, that would have to be Titanic. Okay. And some of you are young enough, probably, no? You're Googling what this boy band is or what movie that might be. Okay. I finished high school in school for girls, and we were very close. So all of the things that we liked, it was pretty much the same thing. Okay. Conformity was more unpleasant for me when I went to university because it was a state university. And my classmates, I realized, had a prejudice against my high school. They thought I was a certain way because I came from there. So my idea of conforming meant I had to change my handwriting because they would recognize it. It would represent my school. I also had to change the way I talk. So I will not attract attention I don't want. Yeah? In fact, when Harry Potter became a thing, I was envious. I really wanted one of these objects, the invisibility cloak. Maybe you're guilty also. You remember a season in your life where you had to conform. Okay? And finally, when we belong to a group, we are tempted to stand out. We compete. So my high school, we had an honor system. Now that means we all promise not to cheat, and we will also tell whoever we catch cheating. So that's 4 years of taking exams without proctors, no teachers watching over us. And to my knowledge, no one cheated. Okay. But this was very different in the state university. I would see classmates to fight for the coveted grade of Uno. Now they would cheat. They would ask friends to take the test for them. They even kicked my chair a few times trying to ask for answers. Yeah? And it bothered me because we are all future nurses and doctors in the room. Okay? Um, if you were vulnerable, you were raised to be perfect, you're probably familiar with stories like that. Comparing yourself to other people, conforming, hiding who you really are, and competing. And also the compromise that comes with it. Okay. Brené Brown discovered shame when she wanted to study joy, fulfillment, and happiness, the secret to happiness. Probably because we are more familiar with shame than joy. So the birthplace of perfectionism is shame. For it to grow, according to Brené Brown, it needs three things: secrecy, silence, and judgment. Okay, so maybe I can share a few stories about that. I am the first grandchild, and I come from a big family. My grandmother had at least, if I can recall, she had at least 8 sisters. Okay, so many grand aunts had an opinion about me being the first of my grandma's grandchildren. No? They said I was too thin, my skin was too dark, my nose was too flat, no? And I look like my dad. Ergo, I don't look like their side of the family, my beautiful mother. No? Physical appearance is a common shame trigger. And I think I'm not the only one. No? When girls meet, no? Especially if they have been friends for a long time, you only need to wait a few minutes and physical appearance will become a topic and it will become a shame trigger. People will have varied reactions regarding to receiving compliments or comments about their face and body. In fact, I find it easier to receive compliments for my hard work, my grades, and my awards, not for my appearance. Okay. And I think even men right now are also struggling with physical appearance as a shame trigger. Okay. Um, Another story might be about your performance, no? Your, especially for the men, no? How well you are, how athletic you become. Okay. I once sat in with a cousin in Canada, no? Probably because my mom needed a place for me to go. My cousin was the cheerleader, class president, think High School Musical, and a straight A student. Okay. And she had three older brothers that were in varsity teams. Now they were captains in different sports at that. So everybody in their school was very curious about me, the new Rizarri. No? And one gym class broke the record. No? Apparently, I can't run and I'm not athletic. So they called me the chubby Rizarri who only likes to read. Okay. So maybe you're like that also. No? We never discussed this. I only remembered that story when I read the book because of all the stories Brené Brown shared. But I realize now it made a deep impression on me. I never saw myself athletic like some cousins, and I always described myself as the lampa or the nerd in our family. Finally, my grandmother shares a favorite memory of my very early years. No? She said, I like to gather the children around me, which I still do, and I engage them in role play. So if they're getting married, I am marrying them. No? If they're taking communion, I would give communion. Finally, they caught on. No? They complained. They want to become the priest. I agreed and I made myself God. No? So I wonder what kind of a friend do you remember yourself to be? No? And are your friends going to agree with your memory? Okay. So when you reflect on your childhood, it makes you realize the deep impressions that you still live with up to now. You might realize things you need to stop believing about yourself, or better yet, you may realize that you can change the way you think about yourself or even feel about yourself. So shame basically tells you I am bad, huh? And guilt tells you I did something bad. Now, because I work with children, I need to learn to reframe the narrative. I need to let them think guilt, not shame. Okay? I need to help them learn to be responsible for their choices. And if they make poor choices, they need to make amends. Okay? Since I know shame very well, I grew up with it. No? It was very important for me to teach the child that they feel guilty and they can do 5 things about it. So what do? When we're guilty, we say we're sorry. We say what we did that was wrong. We make amends. We promise to change. And then we ask for forgiveness. If you like those ideas, I suggest you read another book, The 5 Languages of Apology. A must read if you're working with different people. Okay. Vulnerability is uncertainty, right? It is risk and it is emotional exposure. So the paradox is vulnerability is the last thing I want you to see in me, but it's always the first thing I look for in you. Okay? When we do not give ourselves permission to be free, to express who we really are, we also do not tolerate that freedom in others. Okay? So we tend to put down somebody or make fun of somebody or ridicule somebody no? for um, for highlighting what we feel vulnerable about. No? So be careful when you are always angry with the same person. No? Maybe they're reminding you. Maybe it's a shame trigger. Okay? What is the opposite of anger? It is love. No? We need to cultivate love by allowing our vulnerability and sometimes the powerful self to be seen and known by people. No? We need to be brave to offer our trust, respect, kindness, and affection. There is a caveat. I suggest you love others, huh, as much as you love yourself. And if you don't feel very loving to yourself, maybe you need to work on that first. Learn to love yourself first, then you will know that you are capable of loving others. Okay? A sense of belonging happens when there is acceptance and we accept what is authentic. Yeah? So do you see that in your life? Do you see that the people you're trying to love are making you feel very vulnerable? Okay? So Brené Brown cannot stop at shame and vulnerability per se. It doesn't make the research and all the years she has invested in it meaningful. It only became meaningful to her when she discovered a path to resilience. So resilience is finding an opportunity in an obstacle, an advantage in every adversity, a room to grow even amidst grief. So resilient people, they believe they can do something about their problems. They are resourceful. They ask for help from people they trust. So you could say, I am imperfect and even vulnerable. I am sometimes afraid, but it doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love and belonging. Okay? So we wish we would be like this tree. He managed to grow this resplendent on a cliff on the side of a mountain. Imagine how strong his roots might be. Okay, so the first gift of imperfection is courage. Okay, it is daring greatly. It's telling your story, embracing the truth, who you really are, and letting go of, who you are supposed to be. Okay, with the intention to be truly authentic. Sometimes you're confused because you please too many people that you don't know what that is. But if you set your intention, if that is your goal, then you're on the right track. Okay? Share your story only with the person who will respond with compassion, the second gift. Okay? Not everybody deserves to hear your story, even if everybody may benefit from lessons you have learned. Okay? So you ask yourself, who deserves, and more importantly, whose opinion counts? Actually, Brené Brown was saying, get a calling card and write the names, whose opinion counts. And look at that. Every time you feel triggered by a comment in social media and something else, okay, go back. If the name is not in your calling card, then their opinion doesn't count. Okay. The next gift is compassion. This is learning to be kind to yourself. When you suffer, fail, or feel very inadequate. It is also accepting others, feeling their pain without withdrawing, staying connected to them. So this is uncomfortable, and you will find something that makes you feel very awkward. They suggest that you move gently towards what is awkward, what is scary, because the better we are at accepting ourselves and others, the more we become compassionate. So how do we cultivate compassion? Now, we need two things. We need intuition and we need insight. So intuition is accepting uncertainty, but trusting the different ways we became wiser or we had wisdom. Maybe it came from instinct, experience, reason, and our faith. Okay, so you need to learn to trust your intuition so that you can develop finally insight. This is a more accurate understanding of another relationship. As you reflect on your relationship, expect your insights to grow and compassion too. So ask yourself now, do you trust your intuition? What insights have you recently discovered from your relationships? Is it helping you grow more compassion for others? Okay. This is something I got from a recent retreat, and I actually added it because I realized some kids are struggling because of social media. Now, so maybe you're familiar now with these are all new words to me. But when I learned it, I realized I am guilty sometimes, and I also experience these sometimes. So maybe you have experienced ghosting. No? Somebody suddenly disappears from your life without any explanation. You're still not sure what happened. Or maybe you have experienced orbiting. Somebody decides to interact with you through likes, no? And only through social media, but will refuse, no, to answer your questions or to engage in chats. Okay. And finally, gaslighting. Somebody makes you doubt yourself, no, your perceptions, your understanding of events, and your choices. What's scary sometimes is when you realize you are guilty of doing no? These ways of disconnecting with others. No? They erode relationships. Be careful of them. So the final gift of imperfection is connection. No? It's when we finally feel seen, heard, and valued. No? When you can receive and give, no? Without any expectation or judgment, when you finally can rely on the relationship to give you strength. So the goal is to stay connected in this disconnected world. Okay. Um, we have to acknowledge that there is something bigger than all of us that connects all of us too. Not we can call it love, we can call it compassion, meaning, and purpose. Okay. So being part of a family may happen by chance, but when you cultivate friendship, that happens by choice. So learn to add meaning to your relationships and deliberately nurture connections. Okay. Um, Hope says, I know where I want to go and I know how to get there. Yeah? Hope is telling yourself, I can do this. So when we use our gifts, we feed our soul and disconnects us with God. When we share our gifts, it gives us purpose in our life. Otherwise, we're vulnerable. We feel bored, we feel empty, disconnected, frustrated, and even ashamed. Okay? So they said that addiction happens because we try to numb the pain of feeling vulnerable. Okay? So I wonder, I mean, since I work with kids, what are your kids addicted to? No? Because addiction is anything that can become chronic and compulsive. And it always shows up when you feel vulnerable. No? So you might even be guilty of suffering some addictions. No? And what might you be hiding from? So going back to children, I've seen since the pandemic that they have manifested a lot of addiction to devices, to gadgets. And I worry because they miss out. They won't read a good book. They don't develop a new skill like cooking. They don't explore a new hobby like maybe collecting bugs. No? They don't work or play with another child. No? And they really need our interventions because they don't know how to stop. Okay. So how can children overcome their addictive patterns early before it destroys their career or their family lives when they're older? Well, they learn from boundaries, consistency, and support in their relationships. Okay. Let's be mindful of any prerequisite we might be giving them. I was terrified of not perfecting my performance because I won't win. No? So some kids grow up like that. They are their worst critic. Okay. So let's teach the child to practice critical awareness. Is this real? Is this what you want? Who would benefit when you feel this way? You ask these tough questions to them to give them the important pause to reflect on their choices and on their thinking. Because Zig Ziglar was right. People become what you encourage them to be. Okay. I will lift a few lines from the Parenting Manifesto shared by Brené Brown. You can read the rest of it in her website. I think it's worth mentioning now. It's beautiful. I wish every parent said this to every child. You are loved. We practice courage by sharing our stories of struggle and strength. We practice compassion with ourselves first, then with each other. We practice accountability by making amends for our mistakes and asking for the help we need. We practice gratitude to know joy. We will laugh, dance, sing, and create. We will cry, face fear, and face grief together too. I will let you see me, an imperfect parent, and I will always hold sacred the gift of seeing you, an imperfect child. Okay? So shame resilience will be 3 steps. First, you recognize there are triggers to shame, at least your personal triggers. And then you review the expectations and prerequisites that drive this feeling of shame. And finally, you call it out. Right? You reveal your story to receive compassion from the right people. In our environment, I find myself vulnerable when I'm meeting new people or having to invite or following up on somebody I talk to, even counseling. I know I'm creating and repeating some expectations that drive feelings of shame. So I give myself a pep talk. I count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I act. Now, when I do something courageous like send a text, make an appointment, or ask for an appointment, it already addresses the spiral, the shame spiral that I do not want to stay in. So maybe if you can talk to your friend, the one who gave you access to this video, you can also start to speak up and share what helps you overcome your shame triggers. Okay, finally, we will remember the big ideas of the book, The Gifts of Imperfection, through the word gift. We need the following to receive the gifts of imperfection. G for guts. Guts to allow us to share our story and to practice courage. We need insight. That's the I part, to develop more compassion for ourselves and others. So we seek to understand and learn to speak kindness instead of shame. We also need friendship to nurture our connections. We need to play an active role in keeping and rebuilding relationships. And finally, we need to live with authenticity or truth. Now, we need to learn to be sincere, even when we are vulnerable. We need to call out the lies. If you're a Catholic, confess. Why? Because we want to be happy. Let us remember, happiness is tied to circumstances, and it will lead us to something even better, a joyful life. Joyfulness is tied to gratitude. Okay? It is made up of moments strung together by trust, gratitude, inspiration, and faith. The problem is our culture is hungry for more joy because we lack gratitude in our lives. So let's now do something about it. Let's begin practicing gratitude to improve our health, our happiness, resilience, and relationships. Expressing appreciation actually is even more important, according to research, than receiving gratitude from others. Okay. I hope you enjoyed my few ideas from a good book, The Gifts of Imperfection. Okay. I hope you will remember that striving for authenticity needs guts, insights, friendship, and truth. And all of them will lead us to the precious gifts of imperfection, which are courage, compassion, and connection. Well, thank you for learning with me today. May God bless us all.